Hi, my name is Brooke. I'm the founder of the Santa Barbara Blockchain Institute with a mission to bring Bitcoin lessons to everyone. I also have a website. You see the address down below. Please don't hesitate to reach out and connect with me to grow our network and increase education and adoption worldwide. So, to kick off this series of 10 lectures that I will present to you online, I wanted to do a short introductory video to explain who I am, where I come from, and why you should be listening to me at all. But before we do that, let's proceed with some disclosures. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not investment advice in any way. This is just an educational and informational lecture series. I'm not going to teach you how to get rich on crypto. That's not the point here at all. It's more to have a solid understanding of what this exciting new technology is about. I'm not a technical expert or a programmer, so I don't sort of dive deep into the woods, but I try to give you a sort of a surface level explanation of lots of elements here because it's a complicated area. And so I hope that you leave this series with a much better understanding of the technology as a whole. I do personally hold digital assets, so I have skin in the game. Who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, I'm a Gen Xer. That gives away my age a bit. I grew up overseas, and so my childhood was a little bit different from your average American, but many folks overseas will be able to relate to growing up in different cultures. I lived in Tokyo and Panama and Puerto Rico and traveled pretty extensively as a kid. This is, I think, my 8th grade yearbook, and you can see right above me there in Tokyo. But traveling around, I was able to see some of the things I'll talk about next with my own two eyes, and it really shaped how I see the world. When I came to the United States, I attended great schools. I went to Exeter and to Tufts, and after that, I never really found my niche in a career, possibly because of the bouncing around I did as a child, but I was never really gripped by any one particular interest. So I spent time in the banking world selling government bonds. I was a legal assistant at a large firm in New York City. I was part of a team of international energy consultants. I worked in hospitality. I worked in retail. My best job was as a homeschool dad and the creator of the Money Camp when I had my children at home with me. And then subsequently, I was a real estate investor and became a full-time realtor for a while also. I first heard about Bitcoin in about 2018, so a little bit of a latecomer to many of the folks you'll be talking to, but I was interested. And then when we had our lockdowns from the COVID, I started really studying it kind of full time because we all had a little extra time on our hands. So I did a lot of reading and I completed some online courses from the Blockchain Council and developed enough interest to go on and go ahead and take the business certification from MIT about blockchain technology in the business world, innovation and application. So that is who I am. And as I said, I did a lot of traveling when I was a child. And so one thing that was very apparent to me was how the global wealth is distributed. And I realized from my visits that really this chart rings so true that 1% of the global population owns nearly half of the global wealth. Conversely, according to this chart anyway, 55% of the global population owns just a little over 1% of the wealth. So you can see the distribution here is very, very uneven. And in our country, we live in a country that's only got 4% of the world's population, but a large proportion of the world's GDP and wealth. And so with the institutions and the trust that we have in our country, it's difficult sometimes to even imagine how disparate other people's lives are, how poorly distributed really wealth is around the world in terms of the raw numbers. But this kind of was evident to me as a child. So when I fell down the rabbit hole and really read the white paper and became super interested in this new technology for a variety of different reasons, I then couldn't stop reading, and so I sort of covered through a lot of the different books, and I have the YouTube channels that I like to watch folks educate about, and the websites that I read more on also. And although I was considering at the time restarting Money Camp, even though my children are now in and out of college, I realized that there was no way I could really sort of teach about the basics of money without without understanding the crypto world a lot better, because it was really up and coming at that time. And so to return to these sort of fun years of teaching kids what is money, whose money is this, how do I get money, why is money important, why should I start planning, I realized that I really needed to get my hands around the crypto world. And so I started this institute with a mission to really just to provide lessons on the technology to youth and adults in everyday terms that everyone can grasp. And that's really a challenge, because it is a complex technology, and it's got lots of things that we haven't even discovered about it. I'll talk about that in chapter 3 as a transformational technology. But my goal is really to try to explain it to the everyday person, and also be able to teach it to the youth. So I really focused on Bitcoin as the example of a decentralized and secure base layer network, and that'll become more obvious to you as we, especially as you listen to lesson 7, which is about the altcoin world. It's a beautiful, wonderful technology that we've been given, but we're still very much in the nascent stages, the early stages of exploring what it can do for us. And so we'll have lots of failures, and we'll have lots of people taking advantage of others there. And so we're really at this point in time where we need to sort out what is what, and I talk about that quite a bit in that chapter 7. So as with the internet, exploring this, this is a transformational technology, as I talk about in lesson number 3. There are going to be some extraordinarily valuable use cases, but there'll also be lots of side roads and dead ends, and that's really where we are now. Not to mention difficulty with enforcement and trying to figure out what is this that we've created and how should it be enforced. So I've got a structure for the Institute already, and my lessons range from the very basic and simple, even talking about what money is and what are stocks and bonds in the traditional finance world, to a series of the 10 lessons in Bitcoin itself and the blockchain technology. And then I've got some sort of intermediate subject material also, and can go even into advanced discussion groups for those folks who want to get farther into the details about how this works. My original Money Camp also falls within the umbrella of the Blockchain Institute, because I want to continue teaching youth about money and its use in the traditional world. So I'll continue doing Money Camp. And of course, I'm interested in partnering up with other entities to continue to spread the word. So my parting thoughts in this introductory video are that the past doesn't create the future. It really never has. And when we think about when new technologies come up and emerge, it's usually not the people in charge of the old technologies that bring us the new one. So balloonists didn't invent airplanes, even though they were sort of the first ones up in the air. The horse buggy makers and the railroad barons that gave us sort of land speed, they're not the ones that invented automobiles or brought them to us in any sort of scale. The telephone companies, they were using these networks for decades, but they didn't really invent the internet either, or bring it to us in easy to use available ways. And the internet, it didn't really bring us security. The internet was about connecting us all, which it did a very good job of, but it was never really designed to be particularly secure. And this is patently obvious to anybody who's on the internet. And there's the sort of second generation of Web 2 that we've been living in now, is really dominated by large corporations and the ownership of data. That world is not going to be that interested in creating Web 3, which is much more of a decentralized idea where we control our own data. So we're not going to look to the Googles and the Facebooks of the world to be particularly pleased with or help develop a new version of the internet, which is perhaps what this blockchain technology is going to bring us. So just as a parting thought, older technologies invariably resist change. So I'm sure that you have heard some negative things about this technology also. And in one of the chapters, chapter 9, I'll look to try to perhaps counter some of the things that you've heard on the negative side. But of course, there's room for many failures and many dead ends as we start to explore this exciting technology. Anyway, I look forward to exploring it further with you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. As I said, you've got my website there, and I hope you gain something from these 10 video lessons. Thanks for watching.